When I was small, I used to see my mom baking, and as I grew up, it was through her I fell in love with it. So, baking was my passion. I used to even dream about baking cookies, muffins, and even main dishes like fish so crazily to the point of even imagining cookies dancing and jumping here and there. By the way, hi, I'm Minty. I want to talk to you guys about my unforgettable baking experience this year. So, 22nd December morning started with a heavy rain. Eventually, the rain got subsided and the birds started coming out and chirping. The sun was out and the day was bright, so I decided to go to one of my favorite nearby places, the bakery. Bakery near my house is all-time favorite. So there was this special Christmas cakes and pastries all over in the bakery, and I really wanted the plum cake. But the price, it was damn high for the small size of that cake, and I knew it would not be enough for all of us at home. So I decided to walk out and try something myself. As soon as I got home, I started Googling for the best Christmas cake recipe. I found just the right one and totally fell in love with it. So I started collecting immediately all the ingredients I need for the cake, though it was a lot. So I mixed all the ingredients according to the recipe and eventually started baking it for 1 hour. Yeah, it took 1 hour to bake the cake. And after 1 hour, I came to check if the cake was done, but still it was not. So I kept it again for another half an hour and waited. Still, the cake was fudgy. So at this point, I was not ready to give up so easily. So I tried for one more time. I kept it in the oven for 1 hour to see if the cake would be alright to get the sponginess I want for the cake. But still, it was fudgy. So at this point, I decided after baking the cake for almost 3 hours that the cake is done. It's going to be fudgy, and accepted the fate of my cake. So my cream cheese frosting is my favorite. So I applied the cream cheese frosting all over the cake and decorated it with plastic Christmas trees or pine trees, I would say, and Santa Claus. And I kept it in the fridge and I walked off. It was around 8 p.m. at the time, so I went straight to bed. The next day morning, as I woke up, I saw that my parents, my brother, all of them were watching the news as usual. So I didn't want to disturb them, so I sneaked slowly behind them to the kitchen to see my cake. But guess what? It was gone. Half of it was gone. It was gone. I didn't know where and how, what had happened. So I immediately went to my family members, asked my mom if she had taken it. She says no. My dad says the same thing, and so is my brother. I mean, come on. Obviously, the cake couldn't have gone to thin air, can it? Can it? Or the ants would have eaten them by night. I knew that they are lying, but I don't know why are they lying it, because it is not going to affect me in any way. But I really doubt my mother, because after I asked her about the cake and as I was leaving the room, she was grinning secretly. So I don't know. Anyways, I kept it away from my head and started getting ready to go for my winter clothes shopping. And as I got off the main door of my house, when my neighboring boy, I call him Bima, so he came to me smiling at me with his mischievous smile. I mean, he looks really cute like a teddy bear, but majority of the people in the neighborhood does not have a good opinion on him because he's kind of rude to the elders. So I remember a time when I was crossing my neighbor's home, and the auntie had kept a tray full of nuts for sun drying, and this boy purposely pushed it off and blamed me and smiled at me with that evil laugh and went away. And from that moment onwards, he is never my favorite. So I got to the shop, bought my favorite clothing. Everything was so fantastic at the shop, and after I finished with the shopping, I headed home. So when I was coming near my home, and I saw that this boy Bima, who I met earlier, he was having a cake.
And this time I wanted to figure out if he's having my cake by any chance. So I tried to go near him to see what the cake was. But I saw that the cake was already half smashed and it was chocolate cake, not the Christmas cake or the plum cake. So I decided, okay, I'm done with this. I'm not going to judge anybody. I'm going to go straight to my mother to ask her what had happened to my cake. So I decided to go upstairs and ask my mom myself. As I was heading, my neighbor auntie called me and she said, "Hey, the cake that your mom gave was so good." And I said, "Auntie, which cake are you talking about?" And she said, "The chocolate cake which your mom gave just now, it was so good." And I was so surprised because I never saw my mom making a cake. And at the same time, why she's doing this? Why is she giving to everybody? So I went straight to ask her. And as I entered the door, I saw my grandmother sitting right over there. And she's the most favorite person for me in the world. So I was so happy to see her. And I figured out that she had brought the chocolate cake with her. And she's an amazing baker herself. And my mom took the cake and gave to all my neighbors for the sake of my grandmother who brought for all of them. So I started having this conversation with my grandmother about our day, about how things are happening in our life, and I really love talking to her. Especially her stories and the way she says always fascinate me. So as we were talking, my mom she brought in with a tray of snacks, and I saw that my cake was one of them. My cake was on that tray. I was so inferior because I know my grandmother is a hard critic. So I was sure she's going to give me nice scoldings for messing up this cake. And I was very frightened. And I tried to tell my mother, give signs to her to take the cake off from the tray, but she was not ready to listen. So eventually, my grandmother had the cake. She put the cake into her mouth, and at that time I could literally hear my heart beating out loud because I know that I'm gonna get the scoldings from her. But guess what? She was so sweet. She did not yell at me. She said the cake is good. It's fudgy, but the taste is amazing, and that I have done the justice to the recipe. And I was so surprised. And then we had our family time, and I went straight into my room. As I was heading to my room, I remembered, wait, is this the cake piece from the remaining half or the first half of my cake? So I went into the kitchen to see if my mom had taken this cake piece from the second half. And just like that, she did. She's taken it from the second half. But where is the first half of the cake? I was really curious. So ignoring that, I went into my room, and as I was about to get changed, I saw this small box lying on the floor. I opened it and there were these crumbles of cake all over. I took that crumble, put it in my mouth, and it was my cake. And there was a small note lying inside which read, "Thank you for the cake. Regards, NAP. Nap." And I was like, who is Nap? And as I was confused, standing there for some time and decided to go to my mom and ask about it, suddenly my friends who were hiding in the room, they popped up and surprised me so hard because they had traveled all the way from the neighboring state to see me, and I couldn't believe it. Eventually, I figured out that my mom had given them the cake I made, and turned out they loved it. By the way, my friends' names are Nancy, Amru, and Pearl. It's NAP, referring to the first letters of their names and not NAP, like I thought. And so, I wanted to give them some hot coffee, so I went straight to the kitchen. And I came across my Christmas cake recipe, and guess what? I figured out the missing ingredient. I had missed out one of the most important ingredients, because of which the cake turned out fudgy. I'm supposed to add 100 grams of semolina, which I missed out. And eventually, we had a very different version of a Christmas cake. So that's how my unforgettable baking experience this year turned out to be.